Once upon a time. I was so excited. I just couldn't hide it. I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it. Welcome to BellTube. I'm Brian Bell. Welcome back to those of you who are returning. And of course, welcome to you brand new people who are finding our channel for the very first time. Today, we are talking about April 2024. And as I said in the intro, I am very excited about this book lineup that I've got here. We're going to go through them today. We're going to talk about some upcoming stuff coming on the channel. So we've got a lot to get to. Let's jump right into it with the very first book that I will be reading come April 1st. Look out, To Ride Hell's Chasm by Janny Wurts. Now, there are many reasons I'm excited for this. The first is that Janny Wurts reached out to me on X and offered to send me this book, and it was so kind of her to do. She's been on my radar quite a bit lately, as I know other booktubers have been talking about her larger series, The Wars of Light and Shadow. But To Ride Hell's Chasm is perfect for me right now because, as I've mentioned in some other videos, I'm in the middle of some giant series, and I'm always looking for that great standalone adventure in the SFF world. And lo and behold, To Ride Hell's Chasm shows up at my door. I want to thank Janny for sending me this, and this is the first book that I'm going to be reading in the month. I don't know what it's about at all. One of the things about me, I never really read the back of books. I like to go into them kind of as unaware as possible because I just want to let the pages unfold and let the story develop without any preconceived notions whatsoever. To Ride Hell's Chasm, starting April 1st, could not be more excited to get into this book. Before we get into the next book, I'm going to share with you at the end of this video today something that I think might be helpful to you if you want to have some of those same feelings of excitement that I've got going right now. But moving on to the second book, here we go. We are back into the Sun Eater series with Kingdoms of Death by Christopher Ruochhio. Now, I just finished Demon in White last March. I'm going to talk about that book more in my March wrap-up, but I am enamored, or as my friend over at Talking Story says, I am smitten with this series. Sun Eater is everything that I look for in a space opera. It's got the action scenes, it has the compelling plot, it has well-developed and deep characters, which I find in many cases, especially in science fiction, and definitely in classic science fiction, we don't get a whole lot of character depth. Now, Christopher Ruochhio has solved that problem 100%. Our main character, Hadrian Marlowe, half-mortal Hadrian, the Sun Eater himself, he's such a rich and interesting character, and we are getting this story framed from him in the far future, telling us why he is the Sun Eater and what his penance is for being a Sun Eater. It's just really great stuff, and the series is addictive, but it is quite dense, and rather than binging these books back to back to back, I felt like it would be proper for me to spend a few weeks between books to really digest what the prior book had. Thus, it makes sense for me to do To Ride Hell's Chasm first before jumping back into the Sun Eater series. I'm very excited for this book, Kingdoms of Death, my second book up for April. Now, the third book that I'm going to be reading in April is not science fiction or fantasy. I felt like it might be time to mix it up a little bit and jump into mystery. My experience with mystery is really limited to things like Agatha Christie and mysterious elements within the science fiction and fantasy genre, but just straight on mysteries are very new to me. And so, of course, I tuned into the one and only Brian Lee Durfee when he did his best mysteries top 10 list, or as he tends to do, his top 18 to 26 top 10 mysteries. And at the top of his list, without spoiling it, we get Dennis Lehane. Well, I guess I just spoiled it. Sorry, Brian. They've all seen your video anyway. But topping his list is Mystic River by Dennis Lehane. And I know that Josh over at Red Fury Books is a big Dennis Lehane guy. I think Britton over at Some Okie Dude is also a Dennis Lehane guy. I could be wrong there, but I've heard many people talk about him. I am completely new to Dennis Lehane, so why not start off with his most famous work, the work that seems to top most people's lists when it comes to listing off Dennis Lehane material. I don't have the physical book yet for Mystic River. I might do it on Kindle. I might go get the physical book. I'm not sure yet, but that is for sure the third physical book I'm going to be tackling in the month of April. Of course, if you want to find out how all these books landed for me and to see other kind of cool content that I do on the channel, please do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps brand new people find us. That's what YouTube does. It wants to know how many people like these videos and should we show them to other people. And if you think the answer to that is yes, I would be grateful and I would be honored if you would do those things. It does help me quite a bit. Thanks in advance. I also want to say a special shout out to the Patreons. If you're interested in Patreon, it's in the description. But coming up next week, there will be brand new title screens for you guys, and it's not a huge amount of people by any stretch of the imagination, but I do want to give recognition where I feel it is deserved. And the people who have joined my Patreon really early on in the process, you're going to get your shout outs for sure. Look for those title screens coming next week. Now, the last physical book that I'm going to get to in April, if there's time, because this is quite an ambitious list, is by my friend John A. Douglas. Here we go, The Black Crown. This is, as I've described it before, apparently an orc-based adventure. Now, if you aren't sure if you need an orc-based adventure in your life, what are you even doing? Of course you need an orc-based adventure in your life. I honestly don't know much about what this book is about, but I do know John. He wouldn't put his time into something that he didn't have passion over, and I like to read my friends' books. So if there is time, this will still happen in April. Worst case, it slips into May, but that's my birthday month. So either way, I'm really looking forward to reading The Black Crown, and I'm looking forward to letting you know what my thoughts are on it, because I want to spread the love for a fellow booktuber and for a great online friend. So let's talk about audiobooks for a second. Staying in the science fiction and fantasy world, and we're going to get into some LitRPG here in a minute. And by the way, all of this stuff is probably a little late in the video to tell you that it's all time-stamped. But guess what? It's all time-stamped. Anyway, so we're talking about audiobooks, and the first one up on the list is going to be Tower of Silence by Larry Correia. I have physically read the first 3 books in his saga of the Forgotten Warrior. This is book 4, and it's been out for some time, but I keep hearing about Tim Gerard Reynolds doing such an amazing narration of this series that I'm deciding to do this one by audiobook. I don't know if I'm going to prefer it that way or not, but why not? I do have faith in Tim Gerard Reynolds. If you missed it, by the way, I did a top 10 favorite Audible narrators. I'll put a link in the description, or maybe I'll throw in a title card at the end of this video that talks about some of my favorite audiobook narrators, but I'm very much looking forward to this. I really enjoy the saga of the Forgotten Warrior. It's a little bit hard to say. I had to say that 3 times, but it's probably cut out in editing. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. That's the first audiobook that I'm going to be reading in April. Moving on from there, now this has been a community requested book for some time, particularly my friend Heidi, who's part of our BellTube community, has really recommended Christopher Buehlman's The Black Tongue Thief. Now, this has been on my radar since Patrick over at Patrick Leo on BookTube had mentioned this a long time ago. It's been kind of languishing on my TBR mountain, as I say, but it's moving up. It's going to happen in April. It's going to be the second audiobook that I read, and I'm looking forward to it, not only because I've heard it's a great story, but I've also heard that the author himself does a phenomenal job with the narration. Now, somebody who has the acting ability to pull off his own narration, like, say, a Neil Gaiman does, that's of great interest to me. I'm very much looking forward to The Black Tongue Thief. I think it's going to be a little bit different than some of the other books that I've been reading lately. And as we throw in things like Mystic River for, mystery palette cleansing, I think we're in for a good mix. That's the second book I'll be doing on audiobook. So let's talk about LitRPG for a minute, because that is a focus on this channel. I know that on BookTube, it's becoming a little bit more popular now with the success of Dungeon Crawler Carl. People have been talking about The Wandering Inn for a long time, which I have not got to yet, only because it's so huge, but it is on my radar. Don't worry about it. But in the LitRPG category for April, I will be hitting He Who Fights with Monsters number 10 by Shirtaloon, otherwise known as Travis Deverell. Now, I do love this series quite a bit. I have some hopes, but not very high expectations that those hopes are going to be delivered on for this book, just because I think that the author is pretty comfortable in his wheelhouse, and some of the things that I'm hoping for might be slightly outside of it. But I will come back and report what I thought about He Who Fights with Monsters. If you've not seen my LitRPG Starters Guide video, I talk about that series in 10 series that I think are great starting points, and He Who Fights with Monsters really is a great starting point for LitRPG. But at book 10, I think some of the characters ought to be a little deeper than they are. Maybe we'll get that, maybe we won't. One thing I do know that we'll get is a lot of action. We're going to get some cool magic stuff going on. It's just a fun read, and when you throw in a lot of big space opera stuff, and I suspect the Janny Wurts book is going to be dense, I suspect it's going to require some thought. Sometimes it's really fun to have popcorn reads like He Who Fights with Monsters. I'll report back once I've read it. Another LitRPG that's been demanded quite a bit in the community tab is The Primal Hunter, and I think the author's name is Zogarth. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but how would you pronounce Zogarth? Z-O-G-A-R-T-H, right? I mean, Zogarth? Yeah, sure, why not? Anyway, The Primal Hunter, I hear it's kind of like an OP main character in a LitRPG setting, right up my alley. It's something that I absolutely love, as you guys know. So I'll report back on what I think initially of The Primal Hunter. I know it's a long series, but I'm not afraid of long series. When I do my March wrap up, we're going to talk about some very long series that I wrapped up. We might even do a happy dance about one of them that it's over. But I'm looking forward to starting The Primal Hunter. I do trust the BellTube community. They're not going to steer me wrong on this. So that's what's happening there. So that's 9 books that I'm going to try to hit in April. If a couple slide into May, probably won't be that big a deal, but I am looking forward to trying to get them all done. I suspect that the first 2 on my list are probably going to take up the largest chunk of the month, and everything else will probably go like rapid fire right afterwards. So we've got a ton of books that we're doing in April. I'm really looking forward to reporting back, and I'm also looking forward to continuing with our ongoing live stream series called For Whom the Bell Tolls. These typically happen on Wednesday nights, and we've got some great guests lined up for April. Our first 2 guests are going to be Darko from Kindles and Kicks, and the second week of April we've got Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads, the king of the DNF himself. And no, he's not really, but he's a great dude. We're going to have him on the channel. We're going to find out what makes those guys tick. So we've got lots of great programming coming up on the channel. Those are things that I'm also excited about, and that gets me into the one for the road today, and that is about excitement. Now, I started this video talking that I was so excited and I just can't hide it, and yeah, I know that's an old song. One of the things that I've noticed in people that have talked to me about their own life and things that kind of get them down or maybe feeling low or a little depressed is when they look at their calendar and they just feel like they don't have anything to look forward to. Have you been in that place before? I know I have, where you're just like kind of going through the motions, but you can't really feel any excitement about what's in store for you. And my suggestion and my challenge here for you today is to see if you can put on a calendar something that you could get excited about. Now, it doesn't need to be, a world-class travel adventure, 10 out of 10 in terms of excitement level, but just something that you can look forward to. It could be a coffee with a friend. It could be watching a movie that you've put off for a while that you're actually kind of excited to get to watching. It could be a book. It could be anything really that you can put out a little bit into the future. Definitely don't make it too far out in the future because it's hard to get excited about things that seem way out there. But make it happen in the next few days or maybe in the next week, that there's just a little bit of something that you're looking forward to. It helps grow a little bit of enthusiasm. People definitely tell me, Brian, you're so enthusiastic on this channel. And I think the reason is because I'm always trying to look forward to something coming up that I'm excited about. And I think you can too. It just takes a little bit of effort. It doesn't need to be anything giant, but something that you can tangibly look at on a calendar or a post-it note or wherever makes most sense to you, that you can go, yeah, you know what? I am looking forward to that. And having those stack up and compound will increase your excitement levels. They will increase your enthusiasm levels. And I think that's what we're all about here. And I hope that that works for you. Let me know in the comments for sure if it does. And of course, I want to know what you're reading in the month of April, because I get a lot of my suggestions from this BellTube community. If you're reading something that you think I need to read, please put it in the comments. And of course, as we like to send you out of each episode that we do here on BellTube, here's your fortune.